They say love can heal the deepest wounds. But what happens when the one you love is the reason you're bleeding? This is the story of a woman who was forgotten and a man who remembered too late. Jia Li worked quietly in the tallest building in the city, Seojin Group. Every morning before sunrise, she cleaned the CEO's floor. Every night, when everyone was gone, she wiped away the fingerprints on his glass doors. No one noticed her. No one spoke to her. She was just another cleaner in a gray uniform. But what they didn't know was that the CEO she worked for, Do-hyun Park, was the man who once destroyed her life. And the cruelest part? He didn't even recognize her. Do-hyun was powerful, cold, and feared by everyone in the company. His employees bowed when he walked by. His voice alone could make hearts race with fear. He was a man who believed emotions were weakness. But behind that polished suit was a heart that once belonged to someone he lost long ago. 5 years ago, Jia wasn't a cleaner. She was a bright marketing assistant, full of dreams and hope. That's when she met him, Do-hyun Park. He was charming, confident, and kind. Back then, he smiled more. He loved deeply. He made her believe in forever. They shared coffee breaks, midnight walks, and promises they thought would never break. But then, everything shattered. A scandal broke out in her company. Someone framed her for embezzlement. And Do-hyun, the man who promised to protect her, believed the lies. He humiliated her in front of everyone, called her a liar, and fired her. She begged him to listen, but he turned his back. That day, her heart died. And weeks later, she found out she was pregnant. She tried to reach him, but his number was blocked, his home unreachable, his heart closed forever. So she left, with nothing but her tears and a baby growing inside her. Years passed. Jia raised her son, Minjun, alone. He was 5 now, curious, kind, and full of light. He had his father's eyes, his father's smile. Every time she looked at him, her heart ached with a mix of love and pain. She told him his father was far away, but kind. She never spoke badly of Do-hyun, even when her nights were full of silent tears. To survive, she worked as a cleaner. Life was hard, but Minjun made everything worth it. What she didn't know was that fate was quietly bringing her back to the man she swore to forget. One morning, while cleaning the boardroom, she turned quickly and bumped into someone. Coffee splashed across a designer suit. The cup hit the floor. And when she looked up, it was him, Do-hyun Park. He stared coldly at her. "Do you even know how much this costs?" Her heart stopped. She bowed immediately, trembling. "I'm sorry, sir." He frowned, his tone sharp. "Be careful next time." Something about her voice made him pause, but he brushed it off. He didn't know the woman in front of him was the one he once loved. And Jia didn't dare speak a word. That night, she cried quietly in the janitor's room. Not because of the humiliation, but because fate had played its cruelest trick, making her clean for the man who once broke her heart. Days passed, and then one afternoon, Minjun came to wait for his mother after work. He sat in the lobby, drawing with his crayons. Do-hyun saw him and stopped. The boy's eyes, they looked just like his own. He crouched beside him. "What are you drawing?" he asked. Minjun smiled brightly. "A family. My mom and my dad. Mommy says daddy's far away, but I think he's close." Do-hyun smiled faintly, unaware that the child in front of him was his own son. But deep down, something about that boy made his heart tighten. That night, the rain fell hard. Jia was cleaning the CEO's office late, unaware that Do-hyun had returned to pick up some documents. She was wiping the table when something slipped from her cleaning cart, a photograph. He picked it up before she could grab it. It was a picture of her, holding Minjun. He froze. "Who is this child?" he asked, voice trembling. Jia turned slowly, her eyes filling with tears. "That's your son, Do-hyun." Silence. Thunder roared outside. Do-hyun's hand shook as he stared at the photo. "My son." Her voice broke. "You left me, remember? You didn't even give me a chance to explain." He stepped closer, eyes wide with regret. "I didn't know, Jia. I swear I didn't know." Tears rolled down her face. "It doesn't matter. I've raised him without you. We don't need your pity." She walked away, leaving him standing in the rain, broken, haunted by the truth. That night, he couldn't sleep. He replayed every moment in his head, realizing how easily he'd destroyed her life. And for the first time in years, Do-hyun Park cried. Days turned into weeks. He began changing quietly. He ordered his staff to treat the cleaners better. He started showing kindness, something he had forgotten how to do. And secretly, he sent gifts for Minjun. books, toys, a drawing kit. Jia noticed, but said nothing. One evening, it rained again. Jia was waiting for a bus when a familiar car stopped beside her. The window rolled down. It was Do-hyun. "Get in," he said softly. "You'll get sick." She hesitated, but finally entered. Inside the car, silence filled the air. He spoke quietly. "I was blind. I hurt you. But I want to make things right. Please let me try." Her voice cracked. "You can't fix 5 years of pain with one apology." He nodded. "I know, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying." Her heart trembled. She wanted to believe him, but fear still lived inside her. Then one morning, disaster struck. Minjun collapsed at school. Jia rushed him to the hospital, shaking with fear. The doctor said he needed surgery, expensive, urgent. She didn't know where to find the money. But when she arrived at the billing counter, the nurse smiled softly. "It's already taken care of." Jia froze. "By who?" The nurse pointed. And there he was, Do-hyun Park, standing quietly at the end of the hallway, eyes red, holding flowers. When Minjun woke up, he saw Do-hyun sitting beside him. His little hand reached out. "Dad!" Do-hyun broke down in tears. Jia stood at the door, watching the man she once hated cry like a child. Something inside her melted. From that day, everything changed. Do-hyun came by often, helping with Minjun, driving them home, making breakfast on weekends. Jia slowly began to see the man she once loved, not the CEO, not the monster, but the man who used to hold her hand and promise forever. One sunny morning, she arrived at work to find a letter on her desk. It was from Do-hyun. It read, "You once said I ruined your life. Maybe you were right, but I hope you'll let me build it again, one day at a time." Tears filled her eyes. When she looked up, he was standing at the doorway, smiling softly. Weeks later, she was promoted, not as a favor, but because of her dedication. And her new title? Personal assistant to the CEO. When she walked into his office for the first time, Do-hyun said gently, "Not because I pity you, but because I trust you." Minjun ran in, laughing, holding both their hands. Do-hyun looked at Jia and said quietly, "Can we start over?" She smiled faintly, eyes glistening. "Maybe this time we'll get it right." And in that moment, the office that once echoed with anger and pain was filled with laughter, sunlight, and forgiveness. Because sometimes, love doesn't start with perfection. Sometimes it begins with heartbreak and finds its way back home. It had been 6 months since Jia Lee forgave Do-hyun Park. They were finally a family, sharing breakfasts, laughter, and little Minjun's playful chaos every morning. Do-hyun had changed. He smiled more, worked less, and even joined school events just to watch Minjun perform on stage. For the first time, Jia felt safe, loved, whole. But peace never lasts forever. At Seojin Group, rumors began to spread. "Did you hear? The CEO is dating a cleaner. She's only here because of the child. Women like her don't belong in his world." Whispers turned into headlines. CEO Park Do-hyun in secret relationship with former employee. Pictures leaked online, photos of them walking hand in hand, of Jia picking Minjun from school. Do-hyun's board of directors was furious. His biggest investor, Han Soo-jin, the daughter of a powerful business tycoon, called an emergency meeting. "Park Do-hyun," she said coldly, "this woman is ruining your reputation. End it, or we end our partnership." He didn't even blink. "Then end it," he said, standing firm. But what he didn't know was that Soo-jin wasn't just an investor. She was the woman he almost married years ago. And she wasn't ready to lose him again, not to the woman who once cleaned her floors. That night, Jia found a message slipped under their apartment door. It read, "He'll always belong to my world, not yours." Her hands trembled, but she tore it up and smiled at Minjun. "Nothing will break us again," she whispered, though her heart was already shaking. Soon, everything began to change. The media hounded them. Do-hyun's stock price dropped. His board demanded he step down. And in the middle of it all, Soo-jin made her move. She offered to help him rebuild the company if he distanced himself from Jia. He refused. But Jia saw what it was doing to him. The stress, the sleepless nights, the quiet pain in his eyes. One night, she approached him quietly. "Do-hyun, maybe it's better if I step away for a while." He turned to her in shock. "No, don't say that." Tears filled her eyes. "You're losing everything because of me." "I don't care," he whispered. "You and Minjun are my everything." But the next day, when he went to work, she was gone. No note, No goodbye. Just silence. Do-hyun searched everywhere. He called, emailed, drove through the city at midnight. Nothing. Meanwhile, Jia had moved to a small town by the sea with Minjun. She found a job at a local cafe, trying to rebuild her life quietly again. But every time Minjun asked, "When is Dad coming?" she smiled weakly and said, "Soon, baby." Soon. Months passed. Do-hyun spiraled. He stopped attending meetings. He sat in his office every night, staring at an old family photo. He didn't care about power anymore. All he wanted was them. Then, one rainy morning, a familiar name appeared in the news. Jia Lee, cafe worker, rescued a child from drowning near Haejin Beach. He dropped everything. Hours later, he stood outside that cafe, drenched in rain, breathless. When Jia stepped out, their eyes met for the first time in months. He whispered, voice breaking, "You promised you wouldn't leave again." She trembled. "I had to protect you." He took her hand, tears mixing with rain. "You are my protection." Just then, Minjun ran out, shouting, "Dad!" And when Do-hyun lifted him into his arms, the crowd around them clapped softly. Because even in pain, love had found its way home again. But love's test wasn't over yet. Sujin wasn't done. In her rage, she launched a false investigation, accusing Jia of stealing company data years ago, reopening the same scandal that once destroyed her life. Police arrived at Jia's cafe. She was arrested. Minjun cried as she was taken away. Do-hyun stormed into Sujin's office. "What do you want?" he shouted. She smiled coldly. You were mine before she came." His voice was low, dangerous. "Then you should know what I'll do for the woman I love." He gathered evidence, CCTV footage, emails, everything, proving Sujin's lies. At the press conference, he revealed the truth. That Jia was innocent. That 5 years ago, it was Sujin who framed her to break them apart. The entire room fell silent. Sujin was disgraced. And Jia was free again. After her release, Do-hyun proposed, not with diamonds, but with a simple silver ring. He knelt before her and said, "You cleaned my floors once, but you also cleaned my heart. This time, I want you beside me, not beneath me." She burst into tears and nodded. Minjun ran up, shouting, "Say yes, Mom." She smiled through tears. Yes. That night, under Seoul's twinkling skyline, they finally had their second chance. Not a perfect one, but a real one. Because true love in K-dramas doesn't end when the couple kisses. It begins after the world tries to tear them apart, and they still choose each other anyway. They once said love started with hate. But for Jia Lee and Do-hyun Park, hate was only the beginning of a love that refused to die. And this time, forever meant forever. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more.